Good morning, everybody. Welcome to United Unitarian Universalist Congregation, often referred to as simply United. We come to religious community from many paths, and with diverse needs. If you have come here seeking comfort, may your pain be soothed. If you have come here looking for answers, may you find new questions. If you have come here seeking purpose, may your call be awakened. If you've come here hoping to build a new way, may the path be opened before you. Before we begin our service, a few announcements. The membership team will meet today at 12:15 or 12 because we have 12 works in the boardroom. March, guys, that we just finished, is our pledge month. And this is now April. So we're all being UU, some of us are. We need to get our pledges in, please. Submit your yearly monetary pledge for the next fiscal year. We need to be working on the new budget. Well, Sarah does. And we have a very active church that thrives on love, action, community, and yes, money. Give what you are able. April 15th is big, so please mark it on your calendar. That evening is set aside for our congregation, that's you guys, to meet and greet Reverend Jim and his husband Scott. This is an important time to show Jim how glad we are to welcome him as our new minister. Bring yourselves and snacks to share if you are so moved, but definitely come. The gathering starts at 5:30 in our fellowship hall downstairs. Please be there to say hi. And Gilles.
Hello everyone, I'm Gilles. I'm the auction chair. And do we know what today is? Today is the deadline for the auction items for you all. Again, yes, it is the deadline. And as Jennifer said, some of you all are doing the UU thing and we're gonna either wait till today or whatever. That is fine, and please do get those in the next couple of days. The online auction will be starting in April 21st-ish, and we need time to sort that all out, and also we want to get some of the items up on the table so that you can see them as you come in for the next couple of Sundays. So, yeah, and we have lots of wonderful items. Here's one example of a donation that came in today. So we got a nice lovely quilt here. So be careful about how I handle the quilt. And so there's all sorts of things you can do. You can do items, you can do events, you can offer services if you've got a particular talent that people might like tree services, or I'm looking here, if you've got an awesome sailboat, you want to offer people on a ride, you can do that. And if all of that just seems like way too much work, you are allowed to just donate cash, and we've had some really generous donors in that way. That's kind of where it all goes. So any and all of that is wonderful and appreciated. If you have any questions, please come see me or Susan. I don't think Paula is here today, but Paula and Stuart are also key members for helping us out on that. And the live auction then will be coming up on Saturday, May 3rd. While I'm here, any questions? Nope, you guys know the routine. Thank you.
There's a fair amount of you that have not been to one of our auctions. They're awesome. It's loads of fun. So make a note to come. I didn't introduce myself. Hello, I am Jennifer Byriger, the worship facilitator. With me today is Alex Chilson, our music director, and Aaron's in the back running the show. With us today is our guest speaker again, Reverend Denise, who is always welcome. Thank you. So next Sunday, our service will have Mary Beth Danielson as our guest speaker. And most of us, if you don't know Mary Beth, you will. Our young people, Isabel and Molly, are going to be our facilitators. So plan to be here if you can to show them our love and support as they lead our worship service. And now, please center yourself as we begin our service.
Thank you for having me again. I'm Reverend Denise Cawley. My pronouns are she and her. Today, I'm going to have you meet and get to know one of our UU ancestors, one I told you a little about the last time I was here. She's a brave hero, Viola, or Vi Liuzzo. Understanding her legacy is really complex. It's quite pertinent that yesterday there was a little bit of a march with 5 million people across the United States yesterday. She was a woman who put her own safety and interests aside to fight for the equal rights of all people. She really wasn't much different than any of us. She wasn't a fancy trained speaker. She wasn't someone who had advanced classes in anything. Despite the fact that her efforts in the civil rights movement were really genuine and a lifelong effort, they weren't something that we would think of her as like an activist. They culminated in Selma with the work she did to help the march from Selma to Montgomery happen in Alabama. And she was heavily criticized by the government and the media during the last year of her life in 1965. She really challenged American values as a white Northern woman. And she went to Selma just to help out and see what she could do to help. She really wasn't known. She was just fighting for equal rights for all people. She didn't view people as much different from herself, regardless of the color of their skin. And I don't know about you, but I constantly kind of measure what's going on and wonder if I can actually make any difference. Will going there make any difference? Do any of you think that? Will signing that petition make any difference? Will stuffing that envelope make any difference? Will going to that march, does it matter if I'm there or not? And that's why I really wanted to focus on an everyday hero today, because it's a thought that goes through my heart all the time. And we have no idea if what we do to step forth will be a drop of water in a bucket that we can't tell if it helped fill the bucket or not, or if it will help that bucket overflow. And so I'm going to keep encouraging you whenever I get to visit you to do what we can. Whether we're a stay-at-home parent or a college professor or a concerned grandparent or a young person or a raging granny, we all have a role to play in the world to make it a little more fair, a little more kind, and more just. And so today I hope to inspire you to do what you can with what you have wherever you can. And I encourage us to share bold courage whenever we can. So today our chalice lighting comes from Walking Up to Freedom Land, the words from the African American spiritual. Now, when Viola was marching from Selma to Montgomery, they were singing this song. And I'm going to give you a few lines of it, and you'll hear it throughout today's service. So I'm going to give you a few lines, and then you're going to answer, "Turn me round," after each line. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody. Ain't gonna let no jailhouse. Turn me round. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to Freedom Land. Light the chalice, please.
And now, please rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 1053, How Could Anyone? little bit, Molly, because I have a feeling you'll be up here. This is a part of the service where we share our joys, sorrows, and concerns with each other by picking up a stone, stating our concerns and our name, and placing the stone in the water as the ripples flow out to our community. So I'd like to begin this because I'm up here. So, first off, people that showed up for the hands-off walks and marches, I know of at least 2 of you guys. Well, look at all you guys. Look, look, look. Just in case you didn't know, you're awesome. So thank you for that, big time. Thank you for last weekend. I forgot to mention this, which is very important. The Hope Center, served lunch at the Hope Center last Saturday. And there were 6 of us serving. I think it was mentioned before, but that led into Sunday, which was our Build Unity tour, which again, to me was a big success because we had, gosh, I think when I counted, there were at least 10, if not more of us down in front of the library with our signs encouraging people to vote. And it was kind of awesome because we got a lot of honks and a lot of waves. A few ignoring people, and one kind of rude gesture. but the majority were very, very positive, and thank you everyone for doing that. I'm extremely honored and privileged and all those words to be a part of this community. Now, I would like to put out concerns and positive energy and love to people in our congregation that are unable to be here for health issues. A big hello and hug to Marcia and Alex, and to, I can do this, to Paul and Stuart, and to Ellen and Jeff. And last but not least, to Kay and her husband, John. We're thinking of you all, and we're holding you in our hearts.
Bonjour. We made it back. Sandy and I had a fabulous trip to France. Everything went swimmingly well, and Chet sits before you. Thank you all for helping him.
I'm moving Sally's stone. Because there's okay. Yes, it was wonderful to do rallies. I went to a small town rally. My name's Patty. I felt more inclined towards the small, contained, square kind of thing. And I can tell you 2 things. The best answer I've ever heard to gestures is, does that broken finger mean you're rooting for universal health care? And the best sign I saw was, so many issues, so little cardboard.
My name is Safira, and I am happy that we went to a new church.
My name is Isaiah, and a joy of mine is that some family came to stay with us from Puerto Rico. And I'm happy that my house is now full and filled with a lot of loud and obnoxious children. I've always loved a big family. A sorrow of mine is that I did not get to make it to the hands-off protest yesterday in Milwaukee. I was a little occupied, but my my hearts to the people that went out and did that for us. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Chet. Loud and obnoxious are my two favorite words. It's a gift, yeah. I wrote a book called The Mouse in the Between, and this is all related. But I went to John Wickenburg's house because I couldn't get through on the phone or email or anything like that. And I said, I'm going to go there. What's the worst that could happen? You know, someone reaches me at the door and says, no, don't. It's bad time or something like that. And I go home because I just couldn't wait any longer. And so I went over there. And the in-between I talk about is this connection we all have with each other, each one unique. So when I talk to Sally or I talk to somebody, I talk to them, and suddenly there's this third entity that exists between us. It's like our us. And I went to John's, and I picked the perfect time somehow. And I was there for 40 minutes. We were laughing and cackling, and it was good to see him laugh, and it was good to see him laugh. I had realized I spent a lot of time with him. So between the two of us, I was experiencing me and John in between, because he had chainsaw, he'd done a bunch of tree work stuff too, and talked about the incumbent bikes, and I just had a lovely time. Kay gave me a big hug and said she just was so happy I came by, and just to have a good chuckle with him and see him that he was like solid, in upstairs was important for me. He's struggling physically, but there you go. You got your John Wickenburg report. Okay, he's really in good shape. If I find out anything else, which I plan to go over again, because I don't want to miss it out on another time with him, but I will gladly report that too. So my prayers are for him as well as the other 4 or 3 that we're concerned about.
I'm wordy today, too. I forgot, Sandy Ziegler has been collecting bread and taking it to the Hope Center and St. Vinny's and other places, picks up the bread at McWanago. She asked for help while she was on vacation, so Pam and I stepped up to it and, yeah, okay, we'll do that. Well, yeah, we did that. It is awesome, folks. You go there and you get 3 carts of food that would have been dumpstered, and you load it up in the car and take it to the food pantry. And you say, are you really going to be able to use this before you can't use it anymore? He said, oh yeah, it'll go. So it's an activity that Sandy has that covered, but we've got Waukesha grocery stores and whatnot. It's in here, and hopefully it can get out there where we can actually start a process and collect some of these food products and distribute them. So, to Sandy. And now for all those joys and sorrows that have been left unspoken, I'll place one more rock in the water as we sing Walking with You.
Walking with you, walking with you is our breath.
And now's the time for Story for All Ages. And she's ready. Can I sit there with you? Except I don't have a mic. I'm going to use that mic. Sorry. Okay. Okay, guys, if I sit down, you might have to help me get up, but we'll get there. Okay. This story is called Say Something, and it's by Peter Reynolds. The world needs your voice. Mine? Yes, yours. Go ahead, it doesn't need to be perfect, as long as it's from your heart. You don't have to be loud. Powerful words can be a whisper. You can say something in so many ways, with words, with action, with creativity. If you see someone lonely, say something by just being there for them. If you see an empty canvas, say something with your brush. If you see an empty lot, say something by planting a seed and watching it bloom. If you see someone being hurt, say something by being brave. Hey, stop. If you see something beautiful, say something with a poem. If you have a brilliant idea, say something with confidence. Eureka! If you want to show the world who you are, say something with style. Ta-da, that's me. If you are angry, say something to help people understand. You made me feel invisible. That really hurt. I'm really sorry. If you see an injustice, say something peacefully. No more hurting people. Peace. Inspire others to do the same. Peace. Love. Sometimes you'll say something and no one will be listening. But keep saying what is in your heart, and you will feel someone who listens. You will find someone who listens. Keep saying it. And you may be surprised to find the whole world listening. If you are grateful for being alive, quietly say something to the stars, to the universe. Some people find it easier to say something than others. I hope, I believe, I wish. Together we can. I imagine. But everyone has something to say. So when you're ready, everybody, say something. Your voice can inspire, heal, and transform. Your voice can change the world. Are you ready to say something? Yes. Those are half of us that said something. Thank you, guys. And now let's sing Sapphira. Are you ready to go play? Let's sing her out with Go Lift It Up.
Go lift it up, love bless your way, moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day.
And now's the time for collecting our offering. The offering is a sacrament of the free church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values.
Story time. How many of you went and listened to the podcast I told you about the last time, the White Lies podcast on NPR? Did anyone go listen? A couple of you? You still should. This is UU homework. You know, a lot of UUs think they know what it means to be Unitarian Universalist because they came to a church and they read a list of principles and they were like, that's me, and they were like, that's it. And y'all, if that's all you did, you don't get it. I say that with deep love, deep love. Got to keep studying, got to keep understanding our theology. It's expansive. The other day, someone told me, oh, I think all you do is believe in air. And I was like, oh boy. And I say that not to criticize. I say that because I want you to have deep pride. I want you to have deep peace. And I want you to have a reserve of where to go to when things are hard. And things are challenging right now. So I encourage all different avenues. And Jennifer, where are you? There you are, Jennifer. Jennifer's like, do you want all those slides in today's service? And I said, you know, part of what I do as a minister is I try to bring, you know, if I was a settled minister for you, boy, there would be all kinds of media going on. I try to bring all different disciplines of learning into my services because I want you to access all those places because I want you to have a well of sources. So our reading is me showing you pictures and talking about them to get us into the sermon. So Viola Liuzzo. Now, that picture on my left, I was in Alabama, a place I never thought I'd go, but the Unitarian Universalist Association held their interim ministers training in Montgomery, and was taking us to all different sites as part of, you know, where all the different freedom museums and stuff are. And we were at the Southern Poverty Law Center, and that picture on the left was up on the wall. And I saw her name, and I called my mom. I sent a picture of her to her, and I said, that was your neighbor, right? And she said, yes. She said, she and Grandma, so my son's in the front row today pretending to sleep. So Aiden's great-grandma and Viola were carpool buddies, and they would wait in the line to pick their children up from Precious Blood Catholic School every day and talk, because they each had a whole gaggle of children. And they would talk every day. And my mom, Aiden's grandma, was friends with her oldest two daughters. And so they knew each other. And my mom talked all positively until she got to this one line she said, and she said something to the effect of, what a terrible mother to go and get herself killed and leave all those children orphans. And I looked at my phone like, what? What, you know, like, this doesn't even make sense, nor does it sound like something my mother would say. Aiden, does that sound like Grandma? No, she's a little goofy, but she's a very generous, kind person, right? Yeah. She was going to be here today, but she fell yesterday, and we have to tend to her more later. But so I'm bummed because I wanted her to hear this sermon. So that is what spurred me to do tons of research and find out, where did that line come from? I thought it was a really strange thing to say. So she loved being a mom. That's her with one of her kids on the right there. And that's her with her husband. She actually was married twice. She'd been divorced at a young age. She had an abusive husband and was able to get away from him. And those two girls that she's brushing their hair, those are the children my mom was friends with. Those are the two oldest girls that my mom was friends with. And you can see her doing loving mom kinds of things. She had all these different kids. She grew up Catholic. She went to Catholic school. Her husband was Catholic. They sent their kids to Catholic school, I should say. I don't know that she went to Catholic school. And like many people with no birth control, she had a stillborn baby. And the Catholic Church wouldn't bury her stillborn baby. So here she is holding her dead baby, right? And the Catholic Church wouldn't bury it because it was stillborn. And that just shook her. She couldn't believe that her church wouldn't bury her baby. And so she went looking for a new church, and she found First Unitarian Universalist of Detroit. Her minister was known as a very talented minister, Dr. Tracy Pullman, and that was First UU Detroit. It is still open, and they've been scrambling between them and the Southfield Church and the Farmington Hills Church, and kind of there's two ministers between the three churches, and they've been sharing services and things like that, having modern day problems you would know about too. But he was a really charismatic, great speaker, and she was just really taken by that. And there were many going to that UU church that had been going and helping the Freedom Riders and helping out in the bus boycotts that were going on. And so she went and joined the NAACP. Her best friend was black, and that was less common, and she was used to taking flack for being seen with a black woman friend around Detroit. But Detroit was always more integrated than other cities, especially in the north. She was certainly influenced by Martin Luther King, and she was watching TV with her family when James Reeb, how many of you were here for my James Reeb sermon, right? When Reverend James Reeb had been murdered a couple weeks earlier, and she had seen all that on the news. She saw the attempts to march over the Edmund Pettus Bridge. If you ever go on one of the tours down south, you'll want to walk, or at least walk part of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. I don't know about you, when I hear about the march, I always assumed everyone lined up and walked over the bridge, and that was it. I didn't understand that they were walking to a city that by car is over an hour away. I didn't understand that it wasn't a one-day affair. It took them days to camp out. Elders were going along with their walkers and wheelchairs, and they had to drive them parts of the ways. They were camping along the side of the road. I have driven that route, and I find it very haunting. There's just something about that route. I feel like you can see ghosts coming out of the trees and stuff. So this would have been the first time they tried crossing the bridge, and they met with all of the police officers there that were beating them. When you hear about the people getting beaten, and you hear about cracked skulls and stuff, that was the first time they tried to cross the bridge. The bridge looks exactly like this. In fact, I think I took this picture. No, this is an old picture. The bridge looks exactly like this. That town is frozen in time. They've done nothing. There's been you can see how much damage racism has caused. There's no growth there. So you recall from my last sermon when I was here, that Martin Luther King asked ministers, he asked liberal faith, he asked people of faith to come and help them. And that first round they tried crossing again. That's when James Reeb went down there, and they had a small march, but they didn't make it over the bridge. And remember, James Reeb got killed. So then they were going to try again, and she decides to go to Selma. Now, this is the main church that they would meet at. This is in the Carver Projects, and this is Brown African Methodist Episcopal Church. So everyone would meet at this church, and I took this picture. It has all the scaffolding up. They keep trying to afford to renovate the church and really keep the history intact that's there. But this church is central to the movement. Churches were the only safe places that people could go and meet, and now we're facing the issues where all of us ministers are all talking about, is ICE going to come into our churches, and can our churches actually be sanctuaries and stuff like that. So who was she really? She was taking classes at Wayne State University. She was trying to learn some nursing. She thought maybe she could provide first aid or use her car. How many of us have a car? We don't even think of that as a tool we have, right? Or just showing up. She showed up and she cooked meals. She helped usher people from one part of the march to another, helped the elders get further into the march. Not everyone had cars, especially in the Black community. That's still true today. She was just helping with what resources she had. One was just by showing up. She wasn't extraordinary. So again, this is Brown AME. Again, it looks exactly the same. This is where Martin Luther King gave James Reeb's funeral. These are some pictures of when the march finally happened. She stayed with Mrs. Jackson and her family in the projects, and stayed with other civil rights workers. This is Viola's daughter, who my mom was friends with. And they described Miss Liuzzo as, a white person there just doing everything she could to help Black people, as if she was Black herself, they would say. Now, Viola had lived in the South. She just always called everyone her people. She felt the pain deeply, and she was not indifferent to suffering. On her first day of work in Selma, she met a 19-year-old young man named Leroy Moten, and he was a transportation coordinator for the movement. And his job was to shuffle workers around the city in rented and borrowed vehicles, and she signed her car over to him to use for the duration of the march. She just handed her car over. Now, why does she have her own car? Why does a 1960s housewife have her own car? She's from Detroit, and her husband works for the UAW. And who is her husband's best friend? Jimmy Hoffa. So I grew up in Detroit, right? So I thought Jimmy Hoffa was this, like he's this famed figure. We hear about him in TV and movies all the time, right? Her kids talk about that he was just the nicest, kindest man in the world. And now I wonder how much of what I've heard about Jimmy Hoffa comes from what the FBI painted about him and how much was really true. I don't know anymore after studying all this. So she focused on helping elders who had trouble walking, and one thing we'll see, I don't know if you'll see it in these pictures. Here's pictures of them marching. Yeah. One thing you'll see is that she was a proper 1960s woman who had her hair and her shoes done at all times. And those shoes were cheap and high heels, and they hurt her feet. So she would just take them off and march barefoot all the time. And there's a statue to her in Detroit that shows her holding her shoes. Again, how many people have worn shoes to a march that were the wrong shoes? I have. On the fourth day of the march, she was assigned to do nursing work at St. Jude's Medical Complex in Montgomery. That's the same place they took James Reeb when he was injured at first. And there were rumored plots going around that they were going to kill Martin Luther King at the end of the march. Talking about that there. People were joking about how she had been walking barefoot. She met other marchers, and then she was helping people who were coming in off the march, but she did get to listen to all the speeches, including the one given by Martin Luther King. And after the march was over, she goes and finds a payphone and tells her family how great the march went, and she'll be coming home. Everything was wonderful. She's elated she got to be a part of this and help people. And then she was helping transport elders back to Selma, right? And on a second trip, she was in the car, and we'll hear more about that, but that's when she ends up dying. And this is her family getting ready for her memorial. And I'm just going to show you all the pictures now, and then I'll give the sermon. That's her husband there on the left. These are some of the murals, where she's always in all the murals. And the thing of it was, here's President Johnson signing the Voting Rights Act, and she absolutely contributed to why he said enough is enough. And there she is in that mural too. And that's the plaque in the Martyrs Memorial. And there's the statue in Detroit in the park. Oops. And that's your hymn. How do I? Perfect. All right, I did it. All right. Breathe. So like I said, I was so struck by my mom's response 60 years later that she was blaming this victim for getting killed and leaving her children. Why, I wondered. There are so many things we could focus on about Viola Liuzzo. She grew up poor. I'm sure many of us did. She had a sense of justice from a young age. I bet many of us could identify with that. She had a long commitment to equality causes. She wasn't trained as any kind of justice organizer. She didn't exactly have the techniques right. She did some things that, weren't really strategized, I would say, but she was trying. I could also focus on how the FBI created a giant smear campaign to sully her reputation, which is kind of unbelievable because, again, she was just a housewife, right? Did they really do that because she was a housewife? Did they do that because she was riding in the car with a black man? Or was it because her husband was friends with Jimmy Hoffa? Those lines my mom said, she never should have left those children without a mother, are word for word how the federal smear campaign painted Viola Liuzzo, and in fact printed that in a Woman's Day magazine article they had run on her. Imagine how big Woman's Day was back then. Everybody was reading it, right? So the more I learned about her, I was just so struck by how she never let her own limitations keep her from sharing her gifts and resources, and I thought, I need to learn from her. How many of you need to learn from her? Yeah. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Turn me round. Think we can all be inspired by her courage to do what she could with what she had. She had a really unfortunate childhood, lots of instabilities, growing up in poverty. Her father was a coal miner, and her mother was a grocery store manager. She often lived in one-bedroom shacks. She moved from state to state. She lived in the segregated South. That certainly gave her a lot of evidence for how unfair treatment was of blacks and whites, well, of blacks compared to whites. Once she even tried stealing money out of a cash register at the grocery store where her mother worked to give a black child so that the black child could get some food. As hard of a time as her family had, she could see that the black people were having a harder time. And she asked herself questions about why some people could have so much wealth and others so little. And she wondered what the color of a person's skin had to do with whether they would be a hard worker or a good student. When she got to Michigan, she encountered segregation like she'd never seen before, and she saw how white and black people often lived in two different worlds, and she wondered why people thought they couldn't be friends with black people. She had firm opinions of what was right and wrong, and she made up her mind, and nobody was going to turn her around. Justice was always stirring her heart. Whether it was people she worked with or the people in her neighborhood or shopping at the grocery store, Midland Grocery, that Aiden's great-grandpa owned, or the atrocities she saw in the Detroit neighborhood, she saw these as everyone's concern. She didn't see herself as special or different. She took her children to protests in Detroit. She fought against them, making it easy to drop out of school, feeling education was a right and a necessity. She didn't think it should be easy to not get an education. Her kids say if mom saw a wrong, she took action. When a neighbor's house burned down one Christmas Eve, her mother pounded on the door of the toy store owner's home, insisting he open his shop so she could buy presents for the displaced family. In one job she had, a black secretary was laid off without severance pay. Vi turned her own check over to the secretary and tried to organize the other workers to chip in. Vi was fired after she drew public attention to these inequities. She rebelled against injustices in other institutions as well. She was arrested protesting the Detroit Board of Education. All of her early protests were solitary and lonely. She did it all alone. She felt like she was the only one who cared. Her daughter, Penny, would say, "Everything you'd want in a mom, that's what she was. She was a hero, not a martyr." But this wonderful human being who loved every living creature was often misunderstood. The intolerance for suffering that led Liuzzo to enroll in nursing classes at Wayne State University was another way that she was made acutely aware of Black Americans' feelings of invisibility. During a visit to a department store where there was an elaborate Christmas display, she asked her daughter Penny, who was 13 at the time, how she'd feel if every Santa she saw was black instead of white. When Penny was 16, Liuzzo asked her how she'd feel if all the magazines that she loved to read never had pretty white girls on their covers. The questions offered a glimpse into a world totally different than the one I was living in, said Penny. As I mentioned, she had the one baby die very soon after birth, and the Catholic Church and the Catholic funeral home would not have any funeral for that child because the child wasn't baptized. Ain't no one gonna turn her around. That got her looking for a new church. It's funny because I've done hundreds of memorials for remains of pregnancies. If her love was too deep to discriminate against a baby, Liuzzo reasoned God had to be immeasurably deeper, so she left Catholicism. The rejection by her faith of origin sent her to look for so many different paths and religions. She tried them all. How many of us have done that? She loved that Universalism preached about an all-loving God because ain't nobody gonna turn me around. In 1963, Vi began studying philosophy, sociology, and political science at Wayne State University. And there she was surrounded by student debates and the civil rights movement. And she was soon attending weekly talks held by the school chaplain. And there was this Christian existentialist named Reverend Malcolm Boyd Malcolm, who had been a freedom rider who believed in an ethics of action. And he was derided by conservatives as a beatnik priest who held religious discussions in taverns. Malcolm responded to such critics by saying that the church needed to go out to the people where they were and learn to speak their language. In 1964, Vi's best friend, a black woman named Sarah Evans, urged her to join the chapter of the NAACP in Detroit. And the two friends drove together to New York to attend a civil rights seminar at the United Nations. It was sponsored by Detroit's First Unitarian Universalist Church, and she began attending the church soon after. That church was a hotbed of activism, and many of the congregants had been freedom riders. And discussions around Selma were swirling on March 7th, Bloody Sunday, when marchers were attacked on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. In fact, the whole family was watching those protests on their TV, and all her teens knew exactly what was happening. And then it was March 11th when James Reeb, the minister, the UU minister, was killed in Selma, and the church held an emotional memorial even in Detroit, honoring that, and by then she felt she needed to respond to the call and go and journey to Selma herself. And those feelings intensified as she participated in the pro-Selma marches at college, where she heard students who'd been to Selma come and share their stories. She was sick of seeing the violence inflicted upon protesters, and so when she heard of this 4-day, 54-mile walk from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama to support voting rights, she packed a bag. I'd be like, I'm gonna get blisters. I mean, really, I'd be like, okay. You know Reverend Matt, right? Matt would be like, I'll help you, we'll bring camping gear. Right, Fee, right? She kissed her children goodbye and drove south. She didn't have lots of money. She didn't have fame. She didn't have a lot of time as a mother of 5 and a college student. What did she have? She had gumption, courage. She had an Oldsmobile. She had some first aid skills. She wasn't a full nurse. Once I heard this, I thought, well, of course she did. So often we focus on Martin Luther King, but we forget that movements are made with thousands of people doing what they can with what they have. You know, all week I was focused on what kind of sign would I make for the march. I needed the most perfect sign. And then because my mom fell, I couldn't go to the march. But then I realized, looking at all the pictures, I didn't need the perfect sign, I just needed one. Because the whole point is that everyone comes, and that's the perfect sign. The sign is the community, right? Someone had to feed the marchers. Someone had to treat sprained ankles and bandage the blisters. Someone has to fetch the water. It was a different time. It was far more unusual for a white woman to be doing all this work alongside black people. Right now we're running into the fact that we have so much police brutality and other brutality, right, that we need white people to show up, because sometimes all of our siblings of color can't show up right now because it's not safe, so we have to show up. And another thing was very unusual was this idea of black and white people riding in a car, especially men and women. So after the march, think how elated she is. She just heard Martin Luther King give this roaring speech. She is filled. Her heart is full. They did it. They made it. They'd been trying for a month, right? Or months or years, depending on how you looked at it. And here's Martin Luther King, and he's saying, last Sunday, more than 8,000 of us started on a mighty walk from Selma, Alabama, and they told us we couldn't get there. And there were those who said that we would only get there over their dead bodies. But all the world knows that we are here. We are here standing before the forces of power in the state of Alabama saying, we ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. Today, I want to tell the city of Selma, today I want to say to the state of Alabama, today I want to say to the people of America and the nations around the world that we are not about to turn around. We are on the move now. Yes, we are on the move, and no wave of racism can stop us. The burning of our churches will not deter us. The bombing of our homes will not dissuade us. The beating and killing of our clergymen and young people will not divert us. The creation of our fascism, no. Of this spying on us, no. Of ending our Social Security, no. The threats to all of our security and our privacy, no. Imagine Viola listening to the references to the murdered clergyman who is a UU minister, and knowing as another Unitarian Universalist she'd made the journey that he had intended to, that she had helped with the movement. What pride she must have felt. Imagine how excited she was when she called her children and her family. Her one daughter was celebrating that she'd learned how to write cursive. She was planning to come home. Her children began playing protester in the living room, and her husband got very upset, and he made them stop joking. He was afraid. Maybe he was feeling what was about to happen. And later that night, after the march was finished, she was helping marchers get home, and she and Leroy Moten, that black civil rights worker, were driving along Highway 80, and a car full of white supremacist men from the Ku Klux Klan began following and threatening her. They were threatening and following for over 20 miles. And they were on her tail, and it is a lonely stretch of road, and they pulled up next to her, and they shot 14 times into the car. And they killed her because she was a white woman trying to help black people claim their rights. By midnight, she would be dead, shot while driving. The next morning, FBI Director Edgar Hoover called President Johnson with the news, and the Bureau was poised to arrest Liuzzo's killers, the 3 members of the Ku Klux Klan, but as it turned out, there had been a 4th man in the car, an FBI informant. And on the call, Hoover told Johnson what agents learned from the informant and how exactly the FBI had infiltrated the Klan. Now, her companion pretended to be dead, but it turned out he lived. And due to the misogynistic and social stereotypes at the time, it was easy for Edgar Hoover, the FBI, and the United States government to not solve the crime, nor bring justice. Instead, he discredited Liuzzo and made her a target of the sexism through slander and made her a scapegoat. Her wrongful death has led to many unanswered and disturbing questions about the government and the lengths they will go to protect themselves, their agenda, and their mistakes. The KKK thought this would stop the civil rights movement. So did Hoover. But like many a tide, it kept rolling toward freedom, and many people were outraged by Viola's murder and put more pressure on their legislators in Washington, D.C. to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And Viola's dedication to her values and sacrifice helped all people get a little closer to Freedom Land. As the American Civil Rights Movement has been an inspiration for oppressed people all over the world, she tragically lost her life. Although she did not intend it, she was ahead of her time, impacting the women's liberation movement, and she was never fairly recognized for it. She gave her life with the purest intentions of helping people. And while now is a different time, it's not that different that we still have racism. We still have an environment that's broken. We still have misogyny and phobias, and yet our gifts, our time, and our hope is needed. You never know when you will be the drop in the bucket that helps it overflow. The answer to solving any of these things is courage. Viola, dear sister, dear Unitarian Universalist ancestor, I hear you. Ain't nobody gonna let me. Ain't nobody gonna turn me around. Amen.
Please rise and body your spirit. As we sing hymn number 354, we laugh, we cry, verses 1 and 4.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give, we have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth in quality and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Closing words are by Martin Luther King. Do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as you can. And now we extinguish this candle, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please join us for coffee downstairs after the postlude.
So this one was by request, but I did not need much convincing. I hope you've been practicing your sakatumis.
What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, do you know I got it? All I'm asking is for a little respect when you get home. Hey, baby, oh, when you get home. I ain't gonna do you wrong while you're gone. I ain't gonna do you wrong, 'cause I don't wanna. All I'm asking is for a little respect when you get home. Hey baby, oh, when you get home. I'm about to give you all my money, and all I'm asking in return, honey, is just to give me my proper soul when you get home. Baby, get home. I hear you down there. Anybody bring a saxophone? Oh, your kisses sweeter than honey. Guess what? So is my money. And all I want you to do for me is give it to me when you just a little respect. Here we go now. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take care of TCB. Sock it to me, 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 sock it to me. Little respect when you get home, baby. Oh, real respect when you get home. Let's take it one more time. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take care of TCB. Thank you.